Indigenous and non-indigenous relationships are fraught with difficulties, simply based on their fraught history. The complexities abound, and hopefully we make clear just how difficult it is to untangle the connections people have with the land, the way they relate to each other, and what all this means for their future. We clearly saw the desire and need for development in remote parts of the country, such as this one, and novel ideas to make this happen, where Aboriginal people themselves take the lead in making their futures sustainable. The deep connections they have with the land and the meanings attached to the landscape is a resource as well as cultural repository for them. Anthropologists, such as David and Richard, work with them to use this knowledge to develop new initiatives that may change the way others see this region in the future. We also saw the diversity of indigeneity and relationships that extend beyond an indigenous, non-indigenous divide. Earlier migration, intermarriage, and proximity between Chinese and indigenous people, for instance, means that a diversity and hybridity of identities exists here. In fact, this also unsettles our understanding of indigeneity. How indigenous do you have to be indigenous? This is a difficult question, and David reframed this in terms of belonging and home. Many settlers become attached to the place they settle in, and generations make it a home for themselves. Whether white, black, or Chinese, time creates bonds to the land one lives in, and these connections are just as real as those of indigenous people, but nevertheless have different historical, political, and social implications. As we saw, David is a person who has deep connections with people here, and as a result has been incorporated into the local indigenous kinship system. This integration of others into indigenous logics and worlds is an important step for anthropologists to become further embedded in the societies we study, and also allows us to get a better insight into how societies function. In anthropology, we call the different points of view etic and emic. An etic stance is one of the outside observer, and as anthropologists, we often understand certain aspects of a society better from the outside, without the cultural baggage insiders have. At the same token, an emic stance is one from the inside and offers unique insights too. Thus, as anthropologists, we're often boundary walkers between the two, trying to better understand the inside view whilst also remaining somewhat detached, at least detached enough to be able to make some generalizations about phenomena we describe and write about. This interstitial space between is often the home of the anthropologist, never truly inside and never outside either. Neither here nor there. We try to translate from one to the other in order to make sense of the world around us. This translation of cultures can be taken quite literally in terms of language, when we translate from one to another. It can also be more abstract, as we'll see next week when we visit the University of Queensland Anthropology Museum and explore how things, in this case Aboriginal artefacts collected in the 1930s to 60s, were categorized, catalogued, and made sense of from a Western point of view, and how the museum exhibition is challenging this. See you next week.